there, my name is Tess Miller, and through my seminar, coaching, and therapeutic sound business, Wings Unfolded, I help people who are ready for change, but they're stuck in the process. And as a self-proclaimed expert on being stuck, my intention with these videos is to share all that I've learned in that process and am continuing to learn about being stuck. And it's in that way that I hope that we can grow in uncertainty together. You may hear some slight bassoon sounds in the background, and that's because my son is having a bassoon lesson right now. So anyway, last weekend, speaking of my son, my husband and I decided to introduce him to the wonderful world of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And these were movies that I really loved when they were released. I loved the story. I hadn't read the books, but I knew somewhat a little bit about the story. And the experience of watching the main character, Frodo, go through his journey was just something that I, in a lot of ways, resonated with. Not because I needed to, find the one ring and throw it into the fires of Mordor or anything like that, but some of the themes that came up for Frodo and other members of the Fellowship around being stuck really resonated with me. And it brought some comfort to me in knowing that at least, the author of those books, Tolkien, could illuminate and articulate some of those stuck themes and could help me feel like I was understood in some way. So this got to me thinking about other movies in my life that I've watched that have some of those same kinds of stuck themes, where characters are trying to figure something out, trying to fix something in their lives, but they keep coming up to obstacles, and in that process of dealing with the obstacles, they learn some really important things about themselves and find that they have the tools within themselves to get themselves unstuck. So, and I figured, because we're coming up to the holidays and people might have a little bit more time on their hands, hopefully, maybe you're going to be spending some time watching some movies. I don't know. So these are some movies that present some stuck themes that I've really enjoyed. There are a lot more than this, by the way. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm sure you can think of your own stuck themed movies that really resonate with you. But anyway, these are some of my top 10. So as I said, number one, and by the way, these are not in any kind of order or anything like that. But number one, since I already mentioned it, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Our stuck character that we mainly focus on is Frodo Baggins, although you could make a case that a lot of the characters in those movies end up being stuck in some way. Of course, the plot is about a powerful ring that must be destroyed or else evil will prevail over good. That is highly simplifying it, I realize. But anyway, Frodo has volunteered himself for the task of destroying the ring. Therefore, Frodo is kind of stuck in this position of carrying a humongous burden and putting himself in danger and extreme conditions. The path to unstuck for Frodo is accepting the help of friends that, maybe he doesn't fully trust right away, but has to come to learn how to trust. But then he also has to learn that he can rely on himself too, that he has an internal strength that can carry him through. Also trusting that help can come in ways that you might never have imagined. So, a lot of times Frodo will have no idea how he's going to get out of a certain predicament until all of a sudden help comes along. Something that he could never have imagined happens and he ends up being safe. So what we can learn from that is that, when we focus on the how in our lives. How is this going to happen? How am I going to make change? How am I going to get unstuck? Sometimes that gets in the way of just allowing certain things, solutions, people, events, experiences to come to us. And it's those things that we could never have predicted that help us get unstuck. Number 2, The Breakfast Club. If you've never seen this movie, I will go through very, very, very short synopses of each of these movies, as you'll see. But the stuck characters include 5 high schoolers: Claire Standish, played by Molly Ringwald; Andrew Clark, played by Emilio Estevez; John Bender, played by Judd Nelson; Brian Johnson, played by Anthony Michael Hall; and Allison Reynolds, played by Ali Sheedy. And these 5 high schoolers find themselves stuck in an all-day Saturday detention. They each have done something wrong according to the school, and they have to spend the day here. Only 2 of the 5 really know each other and bring themselves to associate with each other. The others don't associate with each other at all. They kind of represent the different cliques of any typical high school experience. They are tasked with writing, each of them, a 1,000-word essay explaining who they think they are. And they know that they're supposed to write this essay from the standpoint of who the world thinks they ought to be. So they really don't want to do it. So they're, kind of stuck in this world where they've been told all their lives who they should be, but that's not really who they are on the inside. But they're also afraid to really be who they are on the inside because they're afraid of rejection. That's a very relatable experience, in my opinion. So the path to unstuck here is they spend a lot of time getting to know each other, eventually they allow their vulnerabilities to come out, and they find that none of them are either all good or all bad. Nobody's perfect in each of their lives. They don't even come from perfect lives. And eventually, in the end, one essay is written, but only from the standpoint of who they really are and not who they think they should be in the eyes of the world. What we can learn from this is that you can make better connections to other people in your life by being vulnerable, letting your vulnerabilities show. And ultimately, your vulnerabilities are actually your strengths and can help you get unstuck. Number 3, The Never-Ending Story. Yes, I'm probably dating myself with some of these movies, I realize. But anyway, the stuck character here is Bastian, played by Barrett Oliver, who is bullied at school and at home by his father because he's constantly reading and he's constantly in his own imagination. He's stuck in a life where he's always being picked on by everybody around him. And after, these 3 bullies are chasing him down, he decides to hide in a bookshop where he lands on this interesting looking book. But the shopkeeper tells him, "Oh, no, you can't read that. It's not safe for you." So he steals the book, because once somebody says, "Don't read that," of course you're going to want to read it. So he steals it, but, leaves a note saying he'll bring it back. But anyway, the book inside is this amazing story about a hero who has to basically try and save the world from the nothing and being swallowed whole by the nothing, which is kind of a great metaphor of that transition from childhood to adulthood. To every kid, it seems like, oh, I don't want to be an adult because that's the nothing, right? Okay. Anyway, so he reads this book and finds that the hero in the book is completely not able to save the world. But then the book starts asking Bastian to save the world. And when he realizes that he has to use his imagination, something that he's bullied for, he, doesn't know what to do at first, but then finally he does. He chimes in with his own imagination and saves the world, essentially, and realizes that he can create his own solutions to his real life problems by using his imagination. So therein, again, is another example of using your vulnerabilities, or the thing that you think you shouldn't be doing because other people tell you that that's not a cool thing. That's actually that's the coolest thing for you. That's exactly what's going to get you unstuck, is to really use your strengths. So, number 4 is the Pixar movie Up. The stuck character here is Carl Fredricksen, voiced by Ed Asner. And the plot is about Carl, who as a boy really wanted to travel to South America and go on big adventures in the jungle. And instead, he grew up and created a beautiful life with his wife. But when she suddenly died, he, kind of fell into this life where he was kind of stuck without, having traveled, no more adventure in his life. It was just kind of all over. And on top of that, the city wanted to tear his house down. So he refused, because that house represented the only remaining shred of adventure that he'd had in his life with his wife. But then a Boy Scout named Russell comes along and convinces him, oh, you should just tie some balloons to your house and make it float away, and then they can't, they can't knock it down. You'll have it forever. So they do that, of course, because Pixar. And along the way, basically, Carl realizes that it's never too late to go adventuring. He still has plenty of time, and he doesn't have to hold on to that house. Sorry for spoilers if I'm giving the endings of these movies away. Anyway, so the path to unstuck is, really allowing yourself to open up to new people in your life, and new adventures will ensue. What we can learn is that our limiting beliefs make us or keep us stuck. Carl's limiting belief was he was too old to have any more adventures. But in the end, Russell showed him that it was never too late. Number 5, Castaway. The stuck character in Castaway is Chuck Noland, who's played by Tom Hanks. And basically the plot centers around a plane crash that landed Chuck on a deserted island somewhere in the South Pacific. And all he has is what he was wearing that day and some of the packages, because it was a FedEx plane. There were several packages on that plane that wash up on shore, and he has to use whatever's inside the box to help in his survival. So he's also stuck, though, because while he's a major expert at his job with FedEx, he trains people on how to be prepared for anything and to get packages to their destination on time, no matter the costs. And he also, was living a life where he was always traveling on the holidays. So he was stuck not really being able to live his life fully, but, really did enjoy that part of his job that he, felt like he did have control over. But ultimately, what we can learn from that is that the unexpected can always happen in life. We can try to prepare as much as possible, but even then, unexpected things happen, and we are all more creative than we think we are. It's important to look out for any of the tools and things that might be on hand that you could use to help in dealing with whatever unexpected comes up in your life. Your inner creativity is what can save you from any of those stuck moments. And also, it's okay to take risks. Sometimes you need to take risks in order to save yourself from being stuck. Number 6, the razor's edge. The stuck character in The Razor's Edge is named, well, there were many in this movie again, but the main character is Larry Darrell, who's played by Bill Murray. And Larry returns from World War I, but in that war, he saw such horrible things, horrible atrocities, that when he came home, he wasn't really himself anymore. So, not really feeling like himself anymore, he couldn't imagine going back to the lifestyle he had before the war. And before the war, he grew up in a very wealthy family and associated with wealthy people and planned on marrying a rich woman and just kind of living that rich lifestyle. But he didn't really connect with that lifestyle anymore, but he also didn't know who he was. So he was stuck between his old life and whatever was next, but he had no idea what was next. So ultimately, he doesn't know who he is or what he wants to do. The path to getting unstuck for him was that he chose to go traveling. He went to Paris at first and had some new experiences where he wasn't living in his lavish lifestyle at all. He started reading books that were expanding his mind and his consciousness, and then eventually that led him to India, and he figured out what it was in his life that held meaning for him and what his values were. And then he could construct his life around those values and what had meaning for him. So what we can learn is that when we connect to who we are and what we value, we can create our lives in such a way that are rich with meaning and possibility and being truly fulfilled. Number 7, Family Man. This is a holiday film, actually, so it's good timing if you're watching around the holidays. If you're not, write yourself a note and watch it next time around. But the main stuck character in this movie is named Jack Campbell, who's played by Nicolas Cage. And the plot centers around Jack's character, who has everything he wants: an amazing job, an amazing apartment in New York City. He's liked and respected, or so he thinks, by his colleagues, and he's very powerful in what he does. But on Christmas Eve, he makes a business deal with a guy who is threatening to shoot the shop owner over a lottery ticket. And after he makes the business deal and saves everyone in the shop, Jack goes for a walk with the gun guy, and they have a conversation in which Jack says that he has everything that he needs. And the guy with the gun says, "Oh, really? Well, you're gonna get a glimpse of something then." And the next morning, Jack finds himself in a completely different life with a woman that he used to date in college. And suddenly he realizes he's married to her and they have 2 kids. And there's this whole new life that apparently he is living now, but he doesn't have any memory of it. You know, it's just he was plopped down in this new reality and has to figure it out. This was his glimpse. And at first, he really hates this life. You know, it's nothing like he doesn't feel powerful. He doesn't feel useful. He doesn't feel like he can support his family fully. He doesn't know what he's doing, which is the complete opposite of how he felt in his other life. Well, over time, he figures it all out, and he ends up falling in love with this new life because he resonates with the values that life represents for him, the values of family, and choosing family and the love of family over anything else. You know, everything else is the small stuff, whereas having your family and spending that time together means so much more. It provides so many more riches. So he realizes this, but it's too late because he's gotten his glimpse and now he's waking up in his real life and he's devastated. I know, kind of a bummer, but Just watch it. It's okay. The path to unstuck here is aligning values with actions. You know, once Jack realized that his actions were aligned with his values, that's when he fell in love with his life. But when he went back to his real life, he realized that none of those values were being honored in that lifestyle. And that's why it was so hard for him. So what we can learn is that when you feel stuck in a life that doesn't feel like the one that you wanted for yourself, check your values. What are your values ultimately? How are you living by those values? How healthy are those values? What could a perception shift do for you? You know, if you realize that you aren't operating under healthy values, what could more healthy values be for you that do resonate with you? When our actions align with our values, then we truly do find that we have everything that we need. Number 8, another holiday film, It's a Wonderful Life. This one, the main character, George Bailey, played by Jimmy Stewart, is stuck in his life because he always wanted to travel, but circumstances in his family always made him stay home and support everyone else. And he made a lot of sacrifices, making him, you know, just totally stuck in a life that he didn't choose for himself. Eventually, a scandal that's not his fault, but has the potential to completely ruin what life he does have, makes him wish that he'd never been born. An angel named Clarence comes down to give him a glimpse, this is another glimpse movie, of what would have happened to everyone in his life, including the entire town, if he had never been born, making him realize that actually he did have a really great life. And the reason he realized he did have a really great life was because his life was aligned with his values, but he couldn't see how important that was until he got that glimpse. So what we can learn from that is that when, again, it's all about values, when we're truly aware of what our values are, we see our lives in a completely different light. So, number 9, Groundhog Day. I know, this is the one that over the pandemic, everyone was talking about feeling like they were living, but just bear with me. The stuck character here is Phil Connors, played by Bill Murray. And the plot is that Phil finds himself stuck waking up in the same day over and over and over again, no matter what he does, no matter what he tries. And the path to getting unstuck here for Phil is that he realized that trying to change the external circumstances of his life was actually keeping him in the loop day by day. And once he started working to change himself on the inside, he actually started enjoying his life, even though it really was the same day over and over and over again. Changing himself allowed him to have new experiences with that day, with his life. And that's ultimately what triggered the end of the endless day for him. So what we can learn from that is that when you change your internal landscape, your external landscape changes as well. So change yourself first before you change everything around you. Number 10, The Wizard of Oz. Our stuck character here is Dorothy, played by Judy Garland. And you probably know the plot. A tornado takes Dorothy and her dog Toto to Oz. Dorothy is stuck and is advised to take the yellow brick road to see the Wizard of Oz. And the path to unstuck for Dorothy is that over a series of adventures, she becomes aware that she had what she needed within her the whole time to go home and face her troubles there. What we can learn from that is that we all have knowledge, love, courage, basically all the tools that we need within ourselves to come home to ourselves. And when we are at home in ourselves, we can face any and all of the troubles in our lives. So those are my top 10 stuck movies. Of course, there are so many movies that have similar themes. I'd love to hear what your favorite stuck movies are. And thank you so much for joining me today. I'm always so grateful for your presence and to hear any feedback you want to share with me. Please like and or share these videos. It helps other people find me. It helps get my message out there. You can stay tuned to any updates on my Facebook or LinkedIn pages under my business name, Wings Unfolded, or you can find me by my name, Tess Miller, on YouTube and on Instagram. And if there's something you'd like help with related to a life transition, feel free to send me a private message. I'd love to connect with you. And remember that it's okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Have an amazing week and take care.